The transport ship slowed as it approached the massive structure hanging in space. It was larger than any station built by humans, wide enough to hold cities inside it. Lights ran across its surface like veins, glowing blue and white. This was the Coalition training nexus, the place where new species proved whether they deserved a place among the stars. Inside the ship, the human recruits sat strapped into narrow seats. The air felt heavy, not because of gravity, but because of silence. Most of them stared forward. Some checked their gear again and again. A few whispered to calm themselves out. Mara Vale sat near the rear of the cabin. She did not speak. She watched. She had short dark hair tied back tight and eyes that missed very little. Her armor was plain, standard issue, already scuffed from earth drills. She rested her hands on her knees, steady and relaxed. If she felt fear, she did not show it. Across the aisle sat recruits from other worlds. Some were tall, with thick frames and layered skin. Others were lean and sharp, with eyes that reflected light in strange ways. Many of them glanced at the humans, curiosity mixed with quiet amusement. One of them leaned toward another and spoke in a low voice through a translator collar. "These are the Earth ones," he said. "The low-gravity species." The other gave a soft clicking sound, a sign of humor. "They will struggle." Mara heard the tone, even if she did not understand the words. She had heard it before, on Earth, during joint exercises, in training simulations with off-world standards. That same sound of doubt. The ship docked. The doors opened with a hiss. Gravity shifted slightly as they stepped onto the station. It felt smoother than Earth, but heavier than the transport. The floor was dark metal, polished and seamless. Above them, the ceiling curved high, showing layers of platforms, rails, and moving lights. An announcement echoed through the hall, calm and neutral. "Welcome, recruits! You have arrived at the Coalition Training Nexus. Follow the guidance lights to your assigned intake hall." Colored lines lit up on the floor. The humans followed the blue path. As they walked, other groups joined them. The crowd grew thicker. Some species moved with heavy steps that made the floor vibrate. Others glided or walked on more than 2 limbs. The humans were among the smallest groups present. They reached a massive chamber shaped like an open bowl. Seats rose along the walls, filled with observers, officers, and trainers. At the center was a flat circular platform made of reinforced alloy. A tall figure stepped forward. He wore a long, dark uniform with silver markings along the shoulders. His skin was pale gray, his eyes bright and unblinking. "I am Instructor Halvek," he said, his voice amplified but calm. "You stand here to be assessed, not judged. Assessment determines placement. Placement determines survival." A pause followed. The translator systems adjusted, making sure every word landed. Each species has submitted records of their home world: gravity, atmosphere, climate, training doctrine. Based on this data, initial expectations have been formed. Several heads turned toward the human group. Some smiles appeared, some open. Mara did not react. Instructor Halvek continued. "Humans of Earth, step forward." The human recruits moved as one, boots echoing lightly. They stood in a loose line near the platform edge. "Earth is classified as a moderate world," Halvek said, "low gravity compared to most coalition members. Stable tectonics, predictable climate zones. Your training standards have been reviewed." A few observers made quiet sounds of amusement. "For this reason," Halvek went on, "your initial exercises have been categorized as basic." One of the humans clenched his jaw. Another shifted his weight. Mara stayed still. Halvek raised one long hand. "Do not take offense. Basic does not mean useless. It means accessible." He turned back toward the platform. "All recruits will begin with physical calibration, strength, balance, and gravity tolerance." The platform lights activated. The surface shimmered. "Step onto the arena." Groups were called in waves. Heavy world species went first. Massive bodies stepped onto the platform with confidence. Gravity increased slightly. They stood firm. Observers nodded. Next came medium gravity species. Some wobbled but adjusted quickly. Finally, the humans were called. They stepped onto the arena floor. Mara felt the gravity shift immediately. It pressed down on her shoulders, firm but familiar. Like the weighted marches back home, like training suits turned up a notch. Around her, the other humans adjusted their stance. One rolled his shoulders. Another bent slightly at the knees. The gravity increased again. A murmur moved through the crowd. This level was meant to challenge medium worlds. Humans should have been struggling. Mara exhaled slowly. Her boots creaked faintly against the metal. She planted her feet wider. Instructor Halvek studied the readouts. His brow tightened just slightly. Interesting, he said. The gravity climbed once more. One of the larger alien recruits nearby dropped to one knee with a grunt. Another lost balance and fell fully, armor striking the floor. The humans stayed upright. Mara felt pressure build along her spine. Muscles engaged automatically without thought. She remembered the underground drills, the collapsed structures, the days when gravity training failed and they trained anyway. She lowered her center of balance, breathing steady. The floor beneath her boots gave a faint sound, almost like a groan. Mara noticed. She glanced down for just a moment. A thin line had appeared in the metal surface, barely visible, running outward from where her foot pressed. Her eyes narrowed, not in fear, but curiosity. The gravity spiked again. Several observers stood up now. This level was beyond basic, beyond safe for most. One human recruit finally staggered and dropped to a knee, breathing hard. Another followed. But they were conscious, focused, still fighting the pressure. Mara remained standing. Instructor Halvek raised his hand. "Hold," he said sharply. The gravity froze at its current level. Silence filled the chamber. Mara looked up, meeting the instructor's gaze. She did not smile. She did not boast. She simply waited. Halvek studied her, then the others. "Earth training includes variable gravity conditioning?" "Yes," Mara said before thinking. Her voice carried clearly. "Not always by choice." A few quiet sounds rippled through the audience. Halvek lowered his hand. The gravity eased slightly, enough for those kneeling to breathe easier. "Assessment paused," he announced. Medical drones moved in, scanning fallen recruits. The humans waved them off. Most were fine. As they stepped off the platform, murmurs followed them. No laughter this time, only confusion. Mara walked with the others, but her attention stayed on the arena floor. As she passed the edge, she saw the thin crack again, longer now, branching slightly. It should not have been there. She said nothing. Above, unseen by the recruits, analysts replayed the data again and again. Pressure points, force distribution, structural response. One of them spoke quietly. "That surface is rated for siege impact," another replied. "Then why did it respond like that?" On the floor below, Mara reached the waiting area and removed her helmet. Sweat dampened her hair, but her breathing was calm. She looked back once more at the arena. The lights dimmed slightly, and deep beneath the platform, something shifted. The next day, the human recruits were called back to the arena for the real test. Mara walked among them, her boots echoing softly against the metal floor. The air smelled faintly of heated alloy and ozone from the systems. She could feel the tension among her team, but she felt calm. This was just another exercise, and she knew how to prepare for extremes. Other species were already on the platform. Some were enormous, with thick limbs and tough skin. Others were agile, thin, and fast. Their eyes flicked toward the humans with curiosity and doubt. Many whispered through their translators, "They will break. Too fragile." Mara heard none of it clearly, but she could sense the attitude. Instructor Halvek appeared again, his long gray uniform straight, his eyes sharp. This session is focused on gravity adaptation, he said. You will experience levels far above your home standard. Sensors will record every movement, every reaction. Adapt quickly or fail. The humans stepped onto the platform. Mara adjusted her boots, planted her feet firmly, and breathed steadily. She had done training with heavy-weighted suits on Earth, climbing hills, carrying loads, and moving across uneven surfaces. She had learned patience and balance. The first wave of gravity increase was gentle, almost playful. The massive aliens barely flinched. The humans adjusted without struggle. Mara noticed the platform beneath them humming faintly, reacting to their weight. Then the gravity rose sharply. The pressure pressed down on the human's shoulders and legs. Some stumbled. Mara's knees bent slightly, her arms extended for balance. One of her teammates dropped to his knees, groaning, but kept his focus. Around her, other species started to falter. Heavy frames collapsed, their muscles not used to these rapid shifts. Mara stepped forward instinctively, placing her palm against the floor for balance. She felt a faint vibration under her hand. The metal groaned almost imperceptibly. A thin line ran from her palm outward. She straightened and adjusted her stance. Her breathing was calm, even steady. The others looked at her as if she were part of the floor itself. Mara could feel their disbelief. Humans were not supposed to withstand this. Instructor Halvek's eyes narrowed. He checked his instruments and frowned. This level is not intended for humans, he said quietly. Their performance is abnormal. The gravity increased again. Mara's boots pressed into the metal, gripping. She lowered her center of gravity slightly, letting her weight distribute evenly. Around her, aliens screamed or stumbled and alarms blared. The floor beneath Mara made a low, deep sound, like it was bending. A wider crack appeared from where her hand had been pressed. Mara did not flinch. She did not move her hand. Her muscles were tense but controlled. She could feel the platform reacting. Her training on unstable terrain, disaster drills, and heavy lifting all came into play. Other humans began to adjust. They had not been prepared for this moment, but instinct and discipline guided them. One by one, they rose from knees to standing, adjusting with careful steps. Some aliens were now lying flat, unable to continue. The observers were silent. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to fail quickly. The readouts on their monitors blinked repeatedly. Halvek tapped his chin, his face stern but thoughtful. The gravity spiked again. Mara felt the floor under her feet tremble. A long line of cracks spread outward in irregular patterns. It was faint, but the metal shifted beneath her in response to her weight. She could feel the vibrations through her boots and upper legs. Mara's focus did not break. She moved with calculated steps, barely shifting her stance. Yet her body reacted to every pressure change. Her teammates followed her cues, leaning slightly, adjusting posture, and moving their feet carefully. Some aliens tried to imitate them, but their bodies were too rigid, too adapted to predictable weight. They fell, slid, or simply froze. Mara could hear the scraping of armor and the heavy impacts against the metal floor. Some cried out. Others grunted, trying to regain balance. The observers whispered, their voices a mix of shock and fascination. They had underestimated humans. They had assumed low-gravity species could not handle high-pressure environments. They were wrong. Instructor Halvek signaled for the gravity to pause. The platform hummed, vibrating under the sudden stop. The fallen aliens lay where they had fallen. The humans, including Mara, remained standing, breathing hard but controlled. Sweat dampened hair and uniforms. Their boots had scuffed the floor, leaving faint marks. Halvek approached Mara. His expression was unreadable. "You are not supposed to endure this level," he said quietly, almost to himself. Mara tilted her head. "We adapt. We learn. That is Earth training. Always higher than expected, always preparing for the worst." Halvek studied her, then turned to the observers. "Record this carefully. Note the humans' adaptation patterns. Their resilience is beyond projections." A technician approached, shaking her head. "The arena surface. Look at the stress lines. The material is rated for impacts, not continuous load. Yet the floor holds under their presence. Mara stepped off the platform, her boots making soft clicks on the metal. She looked back. The cracks had widened slightly, but the floor had not collapsed. Her pulse was steady, her mind calm. The other humans joined her. Some were shaky, some flushed with exertion, but all had survived. Their eyes glimmered with new confidence. They had done what no one expected. In the observation tier, analysts replayed the session over and over. They could not understand it fully. The humans were too unpredictable, too adaptable. Their bodies moved instinctively, responding to forces in ways no simulation had predicted. Halvik spoke again, addressing the gathered species. Humans of Earth are stronger than we anticipated. Their training methods differ from yours. They survive conditions that should overwhelm them. Observe and learn! Mara walked back to her quarters. The corridors of the station stretched endlessly, filled with moving lights and the soft hum of machinery. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her mind ran over every movement, every adjustment she had made. She catalogued weaknesses and strengths, already preparing for the next test. Other recruits whispered behind her. How did they do that? It is impossible for low-gravity species. Mara ignored them. She had no need to explain. That evening, she sat quietly on the edge of her bunk. Her boots were removed. Her armor lay folded beside her. The station lights dimmed to a soft glow. She could hear distant alarms in the hum of the station, but otherwise, silence. Mara's mind was already moving ahead. This had only been calibration. The real tests would be harder. Higher gravity. Combat scenarios. Survival exercises. She thought of Earth, of the mountains, the uneven terrain, the long marches in weighted suits. She thought of what had prepared her for this moment. She did not fear the challenges ahead. She welcomed them, and she understood something the other species had not yet realized. Humans were not simply adaptable. Humans were persistent, relentless, ready to endure what others could not. Deep below the platform, the cracks in the floor stretched further. Sensors recorded every movement. Alarms nodded, stress points. Technicians whispered about material limits and possible failures, but Mara had already moved beyond their calculations. She had done what she came to do, prove that humans were stronger than anyone expected, and she would continue to prove it again and again in the trials to come. The next session began earlier than usual. The humans were escorted to the arena, where the floor had already been repaired, though faint cracks still ran beneath the polished surface. Mara walked with steady steps, feeling the weight of expectation. She glanced around at the alien recruits preparing beside her. Some had clearly remembered the last session, and fear had replaced curiosity. Instructor Halvik appeared as always, tall and calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. Today, he said, we will test environmental adaptation under high stress. Gravity will fluctuate, the floor may shift, and unexpected obstacles will appear. Stay alert, respond quickly, survive. The arena lights changed color, and the floor beneath them hummed with mechanical energy. Sensors and mechanisms were being engaged for the first real adaptive test. Other species looked uneasy, stretching their limbs and testing their balance. Mara adjusted her stance, feeling the familiar tension in her muscles. The gravity increased sharply, higher than before, almost crushing. Mara planted her feet firmly, her boots pressed against the floor, her legs steady, her back straight. One of her teammates gasped and fell to a knee, but Mara barely noticed. She was focused on her own control, the rhythm of her breathing, the tiny adjustments her body made instinctively. Suddenly, the floor shifted. Panels moved slightly under her feet, tilting at odd angles. Other species stumbled, their coordination breaking. Mara stepped lightly, adjusting her weight to counterbalance each shift. Her hands grazed the floor for additional stability, feeling the vibrations through her skin. A fine network of cracks spread beneath her, but she remained upright. Nearby, a massive alien recruit fell heavily, sliding across the surface and striking a barrier with a clang. The sensors recorded the impact, but Mara ignored it. She focused only on movement, balance, and anticipation. Every step, every adjustment was precise, yet fluid. She moved as though the floor was an extension of her body. Halvek watched intently, noting the strain on the sensors. "The floor is designed to hold, but the humans are exceeding limits," he muttered. His voice carried to a few of the nearby observers who exchanged worried glances. The gravity spiked again, pushing against Mara with brutal force. She bent her knees, pressed her hands against the floor, and adjusted her body. Her boots left faint scratches on the metal. Her muscles burned, but she remained calm. Around her, other humans followed her example, some wobbling but not falling. The aliens were dropping one by one, unable to adjust quickly enough. The arena floor groaned and creaked. A long fissure spread outward from where Mara's palm pressed. The cracks were widening faster than before. Alarm lights blinked across the chamber, and Halvek's assistant technicians recorded the damage with concern. "This level is unsafe for most species," one technician said quietly. "But they continue to adapt." Mara glanced at her teammates. Their eyes were wide, but determination shone. She gave them a slight nod, signaling focus. They adjusted, moving carefully across the shifting panels. Some stretched out their hands for balance, others leaned their bodies at small angles. Every movement was small but purposeful. The other species struggled. Some attempted to mimic the human movements but failed. Their limbs were too rigid, their reflexes not suited for unpredictable environments. One by one they collapsed or froze. The arena floor rang with thuds, grunts, and the scraping of armor. The observers were silent now. This was not an exercise anymore. Humans were proving something beyond expectation. Halvek's eyes narrowed. He did not like admitting it, but the data could not be ignored. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability gave them an edge. The gravity fluctuated wildly, sometimes doubling, sometimes falling slightly before spiking again. Mara adjusted without hesitation. She shifted her weight fluidly, using every ounce of strength, every instinct honed from Earth's harsh training. Her palms pressed against the floor for stability, feeling every vibration, every micro-movement of the panels. Another fissure appeared, cutting through the middle of the arena. The metal bent slightly, groaning under stress. Mara stepped around it without breaking rhythm. The fissure widened, sending small shards of metal skittering across the surface, but she remained steady. Her focus never broke. Halvek took a step closer. "Remarkable," he whispered. "They are not just enduring, they are dominating the environment." Suddenly, automated obstacles were deployed. Panels shot upward, rotating, creating barriers and uneven surfaces. Mara moved instinctively, twisting, ducking, and stepping lightly. She used the obstacles as leverage, pushing off some surfaces to maintain balance. Her teammates followed her movements, inspired and careful. Other species collided with the barriers, unable to anticipate the changes. The arena was chaotic. Gravity spikes, shifting floors, moving barriers, and loud alarms created an overwhelming environment. Most species had already failed, lying on the floor or leaning against walls to survive. Humans, though exhausted, continued moving forward, adapting to every change. Mara noticed a faint vibration beneath her palm. The fissures were merging, forming a network of fractures across the floor. She adjusted her stance slightly, distributing her weight, pressing harder with her boots and hands. The floor groaned but held. Other humans started to follow her movements instinctively. They were no longer thinking about balance consciously. Their bodies responded automatically. One human stepped over a shifting panel, another ducked under a rising barrier, all coordinated with Mara's rhythm. Their combined movement created a flow that seemed almost natural, even in the extreme environment. The observers began to murmur. Analysts replayed the recordings in real time, trying to calculate what they were seeing. The humans' coordination, endurance, and adaptability could not be simulated. Every response, every adjustment, every subtle movement exceeded known limits. Halvek raised his hand, stopping the gravity for a moment. The floor vibrated and creaked under the sudden pause. The humans remained upright, though their muscles were tense and burning. Around them, the aliens struggled to regain their positions, many unable to rise. Halvek spoke to the assembled observers. "Record this carefully. These humans are unlike anything we expected. Their adaptation patterns defy known limits. Every species present should take note. Observation is required. Learning from humans may be necessary for survival." He paused, looking at Mara. "Your performance today will be a reference for future assessments." Mara did not respond. She simply stepped back from the floor, her breathing steady, her mind focused on the next challenge. Her team followed, equally calm, though exhausted. They had survived the chaos, adapted to extremes, and proven their endurance. The fissures in the floor stretched wider, some panels bending slightly under the stress. Technicians noted structural integrity warnings, but Mara did not care. The arena had been pushed to its limits, yet humans had moved through it as if it were part of them. Later, in the quiet corridors of the station, Mara walked slowly. Her team trailed behind her, some exchanging quiet words of encouragement. She thought about the training, the failures of the other species, and the resilience of her teammates. She realized this was only the beginning. The real tests, the true survival challenges, would come later. And humans were ready. Above, in the observation decks, analysts continued their recordings. The fissures in the arena floor were noted, the stress points catalogued. Every movement of Mara and her team was studied. They could not fully understand what had happened. Humans were unpredictable. Humans adapted in ways that machines and simulations could not anticipate, and that unpredictability was their strength. Mara reached her quarters and sat quietly. Her boots were removed, her armor set aside. Sweat dampened her hair, but her breathing was calm. She thought about Earth, about the endless drills, the weighted marches, and the tough terrains she had endured. Every lesson had prepared her for this moment. She did not fear the challenges ahead. She welcomed them. She understood now that humans were not only strong, they were relentless, persistent, able to endure what others could not. And deep beneath the platform, the fissures in the floor continued to spread, a silent testament to the pressure Mara and her team had endured. Sensors buzzed and alarms recorded every vibration, but Mara had already moved beyond their calculations. She had proven that humans could survive what the galaxy thought impossible, and she would continue to prove it again and again in the trials still to come. The arena was quiet that morning, though tension hung thick in the air. Mara and the human team walked onto the polished metal floor, boots clicking softly. The floor had been repaired, though faint cracks remained as reminders of previous trials. Other species were already waiting, their movements nervous, muscles taut, eyes flicking toward the humans with unease. Instructor Halvek appeared again, tall and unshakable. "Today," he said, "you will face adaptive combat constructs. They are designed to respond, learn, and counter your movements. The challenge is not endurance alone, but intelligence under pressure. And fail, and the simulation will continue until victory is impossible." His eyes flicked briefly toward Mara. "Humans, take note. Survival depends on unpredictability." The constructs emerged, mechanical creatures built for strength, speed, and strategic response. Their metal bodies gleamed, and sensors glowed red. They moved silently at first, observing, analyzing, measuring the humans' every action. Mara stood at the front, scanning the arena. Her mind raced, calculating patterns, anticipating responses. The humans around her mirrored her focus, ready but cautious. The constructs moved closer, learning from every subtle shift and step. The first construct struck, a sweeping arc aimed at a nearby alien recruit. The alien dodged clumsily, tripping over a panel. Mara noted the construct's movement and adjusted her own stance. She was not fast but precise. She let the construct strike once, then sidestepped and used its momentum against it. The machine staggered, recalibrating. Other humans followed her lead, moving with controlled rhythm, exploiting small openings, reacting instinctively. The constructs adapted, calculating their attacks based on observed movements. Mara observed the patterns, predicting responses before they could adjust fully. Around the arena, chaos erupted. Alien recruits were hit by constructs, pushed off balance, struggling to regain footing. Some tried to mimic the humans' movements, but their reflexes were too rigid, too predictable. They faltered, colliding with obstacles and each other. Mara felt the floor under her boots vibrate as a construct slammed near her. She stepped lightly to the side, planting a palm on the metal. A crack spread outward from the impact, faint but widening. Her body adjusted instantly, shifting weight to maintain perfect balance. Her teammates followed her subtle cues, moving fluidly across the damaged surface. Halvek's eyes narrowed as he watched. Humans were surviving where no other species had lasted. Their movements were not just adaptation, they were learning, anticipation, instinct. Mara was not thinking through each step consciously. Her body had learned, adjusted, and responded faster than any algorithm the constructs could calculate. The gravity fluctuated subtly, forcing the humans and other species to constantly rebalance. Panels beneath them tilted slightly, obstacles rose unpredictably, and energy pulses vibrated through the floor. Mara used every edge, every tilt, every vibration to her advantage. She ducked, twisted, stepped, and pushed off surfaces, guiding her team with silent signals and instinctual leadership. One construct attempted a direct strike at Mara. She sidestepped, grabbed a panel edge, and pivoted to deflect its momentum. It spun awkwardly and collided with another obstacle, momentarily disabling itself. Mara did not pause. She continued moving, eyes scanning for patterns, seeking openings, keeping ahead of the construct's learning algorithms. The humans had begun to form an informal formation, not rigid but responsive, each member adjusting automatically to the environment and to each other. Mara led without speaking, her presence a stabilizing force. Her team followed with trust, moving as a single adaptive unit. Other species continued to falter. Many were pinned, struck, or simply overwhelmed by the simultaneous complexity of shifting floors, fluctuating gravity, moving obstacles, and adaptive machines. Some fell, some froze, some cried out. Mara's team moved around them, careful but relentless, their bodies flowing with the chaos. Halvek spoke to the observation deck quietly, almost to himself. This is unprecedented. Humans do not simply survive, they manipulate the environment with their presence. They are unpredictable, adaptable, and relentless. Document everything. Every movement, every response must be recorded. The gravity spiked suddenly, doubling for a moment before dropping back to the fluctuating baseline. Mara felt the weight press against her chest, her legs, her arms. She adjusted instantly, bending her knees, lowering her center of gravity, and pressing her palms against the floor. The cracks beneath her hands and feet groaned but held. She noticed that the constructs were beginning to hesitate. Their algorithms could not fully predict the human's instincts. Each hesitation created openings, which Mara exploited immediately. She guided her team through these openings, disabling some constructs through careful movement, causing others to miscalculate and stumble. A panel beneath one human cracked under pressure. Mara shouted a quick warning, and the recruit shifted his weight just in time to avoid falling. The team moved seamlessly, reacting to each new challenge as if it had been anticipated, though every moment was improvisation. The arena was chaotic, loud with the sounds of metal, alarms, and effort, yet the humans maintained focus and rhythm. Halvek stepped closer, impressed, despite himself. "Observe their learning curves," he muttered. "They adapt instantly, predict effectively, and endure far beyond their recorded capabilities. This is not a test of strength alone, it is intelligence under pressure." The constructs began to alter strategies rapidly. Attempting coordinated strikes, Mara anticipated the changes. She moved with grace and precision, stepping aside, deflecting, using momentum to redirect energy. She led her team through a series of maneuvers that disabled multiple constructs simultaneously, using the environment to her advantage. Some humans stumbled but recovered immediately. Mara's presence, her movements, and her instincts created a chain reaction, allowing the team to recover faster than any algorithm or training manual could predict. The other species were overwhelmed, trapped by the constructs, or forced to retreat. As the simulation continued, Mara noticed the arena floor reacting differently. The fissures from previous sessions had widened slightly under the pressure of repeated impacts and shifting obstacles. She adjusted her stance, distributing her weight evenly, and encouraged her team through silent cues. Every step was precise, every movement measured, yet fluid. A sudden energy pulse surged through the floor, sending vibrations that could have knocked any unprepared species off balance. Mara's body reacted instantly, leaning, stepping, pressing hands against the floor to stabilize. Her teammates mirrored her movements, flowing as a single entity across the unstable surface. The constructs reacted with hesitation, unable to adjust quickly enough to the combined unpredictability and resilience. Halvek's voice cut through the tension, though he spoke only to the observers. Every species present should learn from this. Humans are not merely survivors. They adapt, predict, and dominate chaos itself. Their training methods and instincts surpass expectations. The constructs began to falter, their strikes becoming miscalculated, their movements hesitant. Mara moved with the rhythm of the arena, exploiting every hesitation, directing her team to disable threats and guiding them around unstable panels. She was relentless, precise, calm, and controlled. When the simulation finally ended, the arena was a mess of displaced panels, widened fissures, and disabled constructs. Most other species were exhausted or incapacitated. The humans, though battered and sweaty, stood upright, breathing hard but controlled. Mara's eyes scanned her team. They were focused, alert, and alive. The observers recorded everything. The technicians nodded, every structural stress, every movement, every adaptation. Halvek approached Mara quietly. "You have exceeded all projections," he said. "Your performance will be the benchmark for future assessments. Your methods must be studied. Your instincts cannot be ignored." Mara did not respond. She simply stepped off the arena floor, her mind already preparing for what would come next. "He does have a comment of it." Her team followed her, quiet but determined, having survived and adapted in the most extreme conditions yet. In the corridors of the station, Mara reflected on the session. Her body ached, but her mind was sharp. She thought about Earth, about every harsh training drill, every unpredictable environment she had faced. It had all prepared her for this moment. She realized that humans were not just strong, they were unstoppable when they refused to yield. And deep below the arena, the fissures in the floor had widened further, silent evidence of the humans' resilience. Sensors buzzed with data, alarms noted stress points, and technicians worried over the integrity of the structure. Mara had already moved beyond their calculations. She had proven that humans could endure, adapt, and dominate where others could not, and she would continue to prove it in the trials still ahead. The human team was summoned to the observation hall before sunrise. Mara led the group through the station's narrow corridors, feeling the tension in the air. A transmission had arrived from the edge of Coalition space. Reports were urgent. A hostile force was advancing, overwhelming nearby defense outposts and engaging in destructive attacks outposts. The Coalition had already lost several advanced species units. It was a real battlefield, not a simulation. The humans were initially kept on standby. Observers discussed strategies, shared data, and mapped enemy movements. Mara listened quietly, absorbing details. The enemy had superior technology, and they relied on sudden attacks, environmental manipulation, and relentless pressure. Many species had already begun retreating in fear. Instructor Halvek approached Mara personally. "Your team will be deployed," he said. "The situation requires adaptability, beyond what simulations can provide. Your experience under extreme conditions makes you invaluable." She did not need further instruction. She had trained for unpredictable environments, chaotic systems, and rapid adaptation. Her team would follow her lead. They boarded a transport vessel, moving swiftly through space toward the contested sector. Mara studied the star maps, noting the planetary surfaces, gravity wells, and asteroid fields. She calculated movement paths for the team, considering cover, terrain, and environmental hazards. Other species aboard the transport watched curiously. Many whispered doubts, but Mara ignored them. Humans did not rely on others' assumptions. When they entered the war zone, chaos unfolded. Planets were scarred with craters, orbital stations smoldered, and fleets of enemy ships moved with terrifying speed. Mara's team disembarked onto a partially destroyed platform on a mid-sized moon. Gravity was unstable, fluctuating between higher and lower levels. Debris scattered across the surface, creating constant hazards. Mara adjusted her stance immediately. Her boots gripped the jagged floor, hands ready to brace, eyes scanning for movement. Her teammates followed her, careful but confident. Other species had already begun retreating or hesitating. Mara's presence steadied the humans. The first wave of enemy drones arrived, small but heavily armed. Mara moved with precision, guiding her team through cover, dodging debris, and using the terrain to advantage. She leaned against a damaged wall to take a careful shot, then pivoted to deflect an incoming blast. Her team mirrored her movements, following instinct and trust. An explosion sent fragments of metal flying. Mara shifted her weight instantly, pressing her palm against the floor to maintain balance. Her team adjusted without hesitation, moving as one fluid unit. The enemy drones recalculated, attacking with increased aggression, but Mara anticipated patterns, exploiting hesitations and miscalculations. One human teammate was struck, stumbling but remaining upright. Mara extended a hand, guiding him to cover while continuing forward herself. The human's movements became almost instinctual, flowing around hazards and enemy attacks. Their prior training in unpredictable environments had prepared them for this moment. Larger enemy units appeared next, heavily armored, advancing with powerful weapons. Mara scanned the terrain for high ground, unstable panels, and leverage points. She guided her team to push the enemy into narrow choke points, forcing them into disadvantageous positions. Her knowledge of environmental manipulation, gained from arena training, turned into battlefield strategy. The enemy attempted coordinated attacks, but the humans' unpredictability broke their rhythm. Mara moved with precision, guiding the team through shifting gravity, debris, and enemy fire. She ducked under a swinging beam, pushed off a tilted panel, and used the momentum to redirect a blast into an enemy drone, disabling it instantly. Her teammates followed, learning and adapting with every move. Yet, other species watched in disbelief. Humans, the supposedly weak low-gravity species, were surviving, adapting, and fighting with efficiency. They were using environment, strategy, and instinct, something no simulation could prepare other species for. Mara's leadership, silent but effective, turned chaos into coordinated action. The gravity on the moon fluctuated sharply. Some enemy units lost balance and fell, creating openings. Mara took advantage, leading the team through narrow passages and over jagged debris. Her team's movements were precise, adaptive, and relentless. Each step, each shift in weight was calculated instinctively, allowing them to survive extreme pressure. A massive enemy machine advanced, stomping across the terrain, its weapons firing indiscriminately. Mara adjusted quickly, using tilted panels and scattered debris as leverage. Her team followed, dodging blasts, repositioning, and exploiting openings. The machine struggled to anticipate their movement patterns, miscalculating and stumbling under uneven surfaces. Mara signaled a maneuver, guiding her team into a coordinated attack. They moved in unison, using momentum, gravity, and obstacles to disable the enemy unit. It fell, sparks and smoke rising from its core, unable to adapt to the humans' unpredictable strategy. The other species began to recognize a pattern. Humans did not rely solely on strength or technology. They used instinct, observation, and environmental awareness. They adapted in real time, learning faster than any enemy could predict. Mara's team continued forward, taking initiative, protecting each other, and disabling threats with efficiency. The battlefield was chaotic, loud, and dangerous. Explosions rocked the terrain, debris fell, and enemy units continued to attack with aggressive tactics. Mara remained calm, calculating each step, guiding her team, and adjusting to the shifting environment. Her focus never wavered. As the battle continued, Mara realized that humans were creating an entirely new approach to warfare. They were not simply fighting, they were mastering chaos. Their adaptability, endurance, and instinctive coordination allowed them to survive conditions that had already overwhelmed other species. Mara's leadership inspired confidence and precision. making them unstoppable as a unit. When the battle finally ended, the humans stood among the ruins, breathing hard but controlled. Enemy forces were scattered, their machines disabled or retreating. Other species approached slowly, cautious and respectful. They had witnessed humans survive, adapt, and overcome what they thought impossible. Mara looked over her team. They were battered, sweaty, and exhausted, but alive, alert, and ready for the next challenge. She knew this was only the beginning. The Coalition now understood that Earth training was not simple, not easy, and not weak. It had prepared humans to survive, adapt, and dominate in ways others could not. Deep beneath the moon's surface, sensors recorded every movement, every adjustment, every adaptive strategy the humans had employed. Analysts worked tirelessly, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Mara had already moved beyond calculations, her instincts and experience proving more powerful than any machine or algorithm. She led her team back to the transport vessel. Silence hung among the humans, but it was calm, confident, and purposeful. Mara knew the galaxy had underestimated them. They had survived where others had fallen. They had adapted where others had failed. And they were ready for whatever would come next. The final mission began as the humans returned from the previous battle. Mara's team stepped onto the platform at the Coalition Command Center, where simulations had been replaced with real reports. A hostile fleet had moved into the system, targeting strategic stations and destabilizing planets. Many advanced species had suffered heavy losses, and the situation was critical. Mara studied the tactical maps. Gravity wells, asteroid fields, and damaged structures were plotted in detail. She calculated every possible path, every hazard, and every advantage. Her team stood behind her, silent, ready, and alert. Other species present watched cautiously, unsure how humans would handle the unprecedented conditions. Instructor Halvik addressed them, his voice calm but serious. "This is no simulation. Your skills will be tested against real enemies. Adapt, survive, and lead where others cannot. Your performance will determine the outcome of the sector." He looked at Mara. "Humans, your training is unparalleled for this challenge. Move quickly." The humans boarded their transport and moved toward the conflict. Mara's mind cataloged every detail of the terrain, every gravitational anomaly, and every obstacle. When they arrived, chaos unfolded. Planets were scorched, orbital stations broken, and fleets of enemy units moved aggressively. Mara led her team onto the surface of a damaged moon, gravity fluctuating and debris scattered across the jagged terrain. Mara's team moved with precision. She adjusted her stance, boots gripping uneven surfaces, hands ready to stabilize. The first wave of enemy drones arrived, small, fast, and heavily armed. Mara dodged, deflected, and guided her team through cover. Her teammates followed instinctively, their movements synchronized without words. The gravity spiked, pressing down on their shoulders and legs. Mara bent her knees, shifted weight, and pressed hands against the floor to maintain balance. Debris flew, explosions erupted, and enemy fire rained down. Her team flowed through the chaos, adjusting instantly to every change. Other species faltered, unable to cope with the sudden shifts and unpredictable environment. A massive enemy machine advanced, its weapons firing indiscriminately. Mara analyzed the structure and movement, using tilted panels and jagged debris for leverage. She directed her team to exploit weaknesses, guiding them around attacks and disabling key components. Each human moved with instinctive precision, reacting faster than the enemy could predict. The battlefield became a contest of adaptability. Mara led her team through shifting gravity, collapsing structures, and unexpected attacks. Each movement was calculated instinctively, her experience on Earth guiding every step. Her team mirrored her, flowing through danger with determination and skill. Other species watched in awe. Humans, the supposedly weak low-gravity species, were enduring, adapting, and dominating in ways no one anticipated. Mara's leadership transformed chaos into coordinated action, and her team survived where others failed. The enemy attempted a coordinated assault, but humans anticipated the strategy. Mara moved with silent precision, guiding her team to exploit openings, redirect energy, and counter effectively. The enemy miscalculated, and their units were disabled or forced to retreat. Explosions shook the ground. Panels cracked under pressure. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Mara pressed her palm against the floor, feeling vibrations adjusting and stabilizing. Her team responded without hesitation, moving fluidly through debris, danger, and enemy attacks. Every step was a combination of instinct, experience, and trust. A human teammate was struck by debris, but recovered quickly, aided by Mara's guidance. Another team member used momentum from a tilted panel to disable an enemy drone. Their movements were seamless, instinctive, and effective. Mara's presence amplified their efficiency, turning each obstacle into an opportunity. The massive enemy units struggled to adapt to the humans' unpredictable strategy. Mara led a coordinated counterattack, using gravity shifts, debris, and energy pulses to her advantage. Enemy machines fell, miscalculating, unable to counter the humans' fluid movements. Halvik observed from the command deck, his expression serious. Humans do not merely survive, they manipulate the environment with instinct and intelligence. They dominate chaos itself. Every species present must study this. Document it carefully. This is a new paradigm. The battlefield remained dangerous, but Mara's team advanced steadily. They disabled key enemy units, cleared paths through debris, and protected each other with instinctive coordination. Every hazard, every gravitational fluctuation, every attack was met with calm, precise adaptation. As the battle reached its peak, Mara realized the humans had not only survived, they had forced the enemy to retreat. Their coordination, resilience, and instinctive response had turned the tide. The other species began to recognize their own limitations and observed humans with newfound respect. When the final enemy units retreated, the humans stood victorious among the ruins. Mara's team was exhausted but alert. Every member had survived extreme conditions, adapted to chaos, and contributed to the victory. They had demonstrated endurance, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Mara looked over her team. They were battered, sweaty, and bruised, but alive and focused. She understood that humans were not merely strong, they were relentless. Their adaptability and persistence had allowed them to overcome the impossible. Back at the Coalition Command Center, analysts studied the battlefield data. Fissures in structures, gravity anomalies, enemy losses, all had been navigated and exploited by humans in ways no simulation could predict. Mara's leadership and the team's instinctive coordination had changed the perception of humanity across the Coalition. The arena floor, previously the site of training and tests, was repaired and reinforced. Yet everyone who observed knew that human training had always gone beyond the physical. It had taught instinct, patience, coordination, and the ability to dominate chaos. Mara led her team back to their quarters. They were quiet but confident, having survived the deadliest conditions and emerged victorious. The galaxy had underestimated them. Earth training had prepared them for the impossible. And now every species in the Coalition knew humans could endure, adapt, and dominate in ways no one else could. They were ready for anything,